Hi, I'm Ian.
And I'm Jason.
And this is Ghosts and Bears, the only podcast where we bring you the actual ghost stories
With the actual history.
in the actual place. This episode, we're off to the Comox Valley where we're going to hear all about the secrets and the ghosts that still remain on Ghosts and Bears. All right, so here we are. We are back with season 2. Not quite the bang we were hoping for, however.
Yeah, welcome back. Happy New Year and all that jazz. We're recovering from COVID, so not nice.
No, we got it about 5 or 6 days ago, and it has been a bit of a struggle even to do this. I got it all set up to do on the weekend, and when I got everything set up, I'm like, I don't have any energy anymore.
So, yeah, we are fully vaccinated,
Mm-hmm.
and this household is fully boosted,
Yeah.
so we're lucky.
Yeah.
Ian isn't kidding about this. If you don't have your vaccination, put aside your swords, lances, all that jazz, and just get jabbed.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Go
I
get it
can't-
done. Go get it done.
I have the lungs of a bagpipist, if one can consider that a word. Maybe it's a neologism. But realistically, it is hard to breathe.
Mhm.
Last night, I'm furious. I lost my sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
I can literally open up Brute and put it against my nose and barely smell it.
Well, maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, but it was a good test.
Anyway, if you hear us and we are not at our peak, shall we say, energy-wise and voice-wise, that is why. But we are thankful to be here. We're thankful to be, I think, on the mend.
Yeah.
We're certainly turning a corner, and we're going to bring you the exciting and rich history of the Comox Valley and some of the ghosts. And this was actually really fun because Jason and I headed up to Comox for his birthday. That's what he wanted to do.
Yes.
And on the very night of your birthday, we recorded 3 stories in different places around Comox.
That's right.
So that was fun. So we're going to bring you those 3 different locations, the Fortress and Sandwick House and the CFP Quadra.
HMCS Quadra.
Oh, sorry, HMCS Quadra. I
On the
know.
Goose Spit.
Part of CFB Comox.
Yes. CFP.
Yes.
Well,
Canadian
CFP Comox is
Canadian Forces Base.
Yes.
Got it.
CFP, yes.
So we're going to focus on those, and we're looking forward to that. We're also really excited just to be back. We have been away a few weeks and enjoyed our Christmas break and got things ready for this season.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Ian got a nice new computer to help edit, so thank
Yeah.
you to all of our listeners and your support.
Yes, absolutely. So this should be a lot smoother for us.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. It was very much a staycation.
Mm-hmm.
So, the big question from a lot of people should be, how are you feeling? But where did you get it? I'm feeling not bad, thanks.
Yeah.
But, who knows?
Who knows?
Honestly, it could have been in Costco in Paso.
And that's
Never
the
know.
thing. So we're going to talk about Comox Valley. Now, if you don't know, Comox Valley is a region on the east coast of Vancouver Island. It's kind of midway up the island. It's sort of halfway up on Vancouver Island where we live. And it includes the city of Courtney, the town of Comox, and the village of Cumberland. We're going to be talking about Courtney and Comox today, but there's a few other settlements around there. There's about 65,000 people somewhere in there geographically. And there's a glacier involved. It's got our only ski hill here on the island, Mount Washington.
Oh, no, there's a ski hill
Oh,
up
no,
there.
you're right.
Yeah, way up there.
I take that back. I will say our most popular ski hill.
Yes.
Where
With
you
a
can go up and
village.
actually, with a village, you can stay up there and stuff like that. Of course, indigenous people have been there forever, but it was the first colonialists who showed up. Now, they're saying that Sir Francis Drake visited in 1579. However, the real kind of first colonial settlers appeared more likely around 1792. They decided that it was a great place to farm because of the glacier and the runoff and the valley. And so they really, really encouraged people to go up and farm, they quickly discovered coal and lumber. And they began doing what they did so wonderfully back in those days, which was destroy the local population as well as the land. So that was pretty big. It became one of the center of one of the British Empire's largest private railways, believe it or not. They worked really hard at that. Now, the one problem that held it from growing was that they couldn't secure a road from Comox to Nanaimo, which was sort of the next biggest city. It was just too much. They tried to build bridges. They tried doing everything. It just wasn't going to work. And it wasn't until past the mid 1880s that the area was, 1890s, the area was only accessible by sea, which I didn't know. You couldn't actually travel. So that made life a little harder. But quite frankly, life on the island, that's what everyone did anyway. You just took it for granted that you were going to have to go to sea. It grew and grew, and eventually Comox is now known for logging, which of course is not in great shape, but also it's also known for farming. Now it's a lot of tourists and retirees in Comox. Yes, up until about 20 years ago, Comox was a much more reasonable place to buy. So you would retire in Victoria and you'd move on up to Comox where your housing dollar bought more, but it's just not the same anymore. So now it's going to be the way it is. There is a big popular airport which WestJet flies directly to Toronto from. Well, it did back before COVID.
Yeah, I'm not sure now.
I don't know now. And then there's also a ferry terminal that goes to Powell River, which is across the water, and to the wonderfully named Blubber Bay on Texada Island, which you're not going to get better than that. I want a shirt. I was in Blubber Bay.
That's right.
Spread over my blubber. So yeah, it's a pretty neat place. The other side of the Comox Valley that nobody really talks about, it's kind of known as the Valley of Festivals. They have a bunch of different festivals up there, and a cultural capital. They have a lot of music and theater and things like that. You drive through town, you see churches turned into community theaters and art spaces and things like that. So it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat place. We went up there because Jason loves going up there. You spent a lot of your best summers up in the Comox Valley, and it has remained a place for you that you love, which is awesome. We have a story at the end of that about that. But until then, we're going to jump into our, now that you have an idea about where the place is and what it's all about, we're going to talk about our stories, and we're going to do them in order, the history in order, and then the stories will be in order as well. So we came across this place first of all. It was called, it's nicknamed the Fort. It's quite a large home. It was built back in 1938 and 39 to, of course, the British people. Yes, Sir Ernest and Lady Petta. They came to visit the Courtney and Comox area 3 years earlier. They loved it. As you said in the story, when I re-listened to it, you're like, I wonder if they like National Geographic seeing all the First Nations people. Like, oh my God. Because the First Nations people were right there.
Below them.
Yeah,
Yes,
below them,
correct.
literally.
Comox Nation.
In their eyes, in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Being the proud Brits they were. It's now, it's interesting, the house has gone through a lot of iterations, but they did talk about the house. It made the Vancouver papers when it was built because it was such a big deal. There's actually a quote from the Vancouver Sun in 1939. Sir Ernest and Lady Petter have settled into their pleasant new home on the seafront of Comox, arriving from England in May. Their decision to come to live on Vancouver Island was reached only after a reconnaissance of 3 years. They came out to see relatives at Comox 3 years ago and fell in love with the valley. Each succeeding visit confirmed the impression that Comox was a very pleasant place in which to live. The house was commenced last June and completed before Sir Ernest and Lady Petter arrived this spring. The site is on a cliff overlooking Comox Bay with a superb view of Comox Harbor and the Gulf of Georgia to the east and the mountains of Beaufort Range on the west. Because of this, they named it the fort, mostly because at the foot of the hills, the Indian reservation of the Comox people, They held potlatches in which thousands of people would gather for the feast. They were subject to raids from other tribes. And at the top of the hill on the high ground, where the house was built, were shallow trenches in which sentinels were posted to give warning of enemies, hence the name the fort. So this is why the house was built where it was. It was a highly defensible place. For them, it gave a pretty view. But for the local First Nations band, it was way more important.
That's right.
Yeah. It was just a lovely home, and it's still there. What does it look like now, Jay, when we went there?
It's been well kept. I mean, it's now businesses, right?
What was it before?
It was a residence and
An old people's home?
yes, yeah, an old folks' home.
Oh, and university administration office.
Yes, that's right, correct. In
Yeah.
the late 70s, it was a university, well, for Island...
North Island College.
North Island College,
Yeah.
right, and I see. Their administration in the late 70s, and now it's several offices, so I can't remember. I think there's, a chiropractor?
There's like 7 or 8 different offices in there.
And I
think.
believe there's a
Yeah.
banking office in there.
Yeah,
or a
and some
mortgage office. Investment firm, I think
Yeah.
is what it is.
Oh, and a psychologist is in there too. There's a psychologist. So it's just an interesting house. The funny thing is, we went to see it. We punched in the address, and we got there, and I was like, I think we're in the wrong place, because where Google Maps stopped us was in front of townhomes. And so we moved to go and turn around because I thought maybe we had the wrong place, because it was called the Fort,
Yes.
housing development or whatever. So we thought, oh, Google screwed up. We went to turn around, and there it was in all its glory. But it is literally surrounded by 1980s era kind of suburban homes. There's
Yeah,
nothing
70s,
left
80s,
of the
yeah.
original
No,
original property.
the
Really
huge lot it was once on is basically
gone. Yeah.
You know, it basically had originally 105-foot footage, but it's pretty clear that that's not true anymore because of the views are obstructed now by other big houses.
It looks a little marooned, to be honest. It looks like it's just completely out of its element, but it's still there.
I did get some decent photos of it,
Which we'll
trying to
absolutely
isolate it a
put
bit.
up for our patrons. Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be great. So that is the history, as you now know. And the stories were great, and you'll hear those in our story time. But that was the history of what is known as the Fort, the Comox mansion built for the Petters.
And it should have Ian's room still.
Yeah, which is in the story. So that'll be fun to hear.
Room 202, if I remember right.
We did not know that was in there until we got there. So that was really cool.
It's still labeled as such today.
Yeah, Ian's room. So watch out, bitches. I'm on the house. Jay, do you want to talk about Sandwick Manor?
So our next discussion will be Sandwick Manor.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting place.
It was.
The property is quite unique. It's beautiful, but definitely built up literally immediately surrounding
It's
the old house.
kind of sad.
You know, you have an RCMP station.
Right beside it.
Yeah, literally beside it. And
Yeah.
then across the street now a Home Depot.
The back of a Home Depot.
And, yeah. And then on the other side you have apartment buildings,
Yeah.
right? It's definitely built around.
Yeah.
So it is a unique house. It was constructed in 1910 to 1911 with Eric Duncan, and it is technically the oldest residential structure east of the Courtney River.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Duncan was considered a respected farmer, a store owner, and a postmaster. But moreover, he was known for his poetry and writings. And his memoirs have helped tell Courtney's early history.
Which is really cool. I love stuff like that.
And, you know, it's on the same side of the bridge as Comox, but technically it's in Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, because everything now is so built up, even from the early 90s to mid 90s, it's just one large community at this point. He was, I'm now quoting here, regarded as the philosopher of Vancouver Island. Duncan was known for his columns about life on Vancouver Island, which appeared in both the Vancouver Province and Sun, as well as local newspapers. It is significant that Duncan was the author of 2 influential recollections, including 57 Years in the Comox Valley and Shetland to Vancouver Island, a book which received praise from the London Times and was republished several times. And that is historicplaces.ca.
Which was really cool. The fact that this guy was there and doing all that was pretty neat. And then the house has gone on to be privately owned. Mm-hmm. I don't believe it's ever been used by business other than the bed and breakfast was there.
That's correct.
But it's still there. It's still hanging on. Still on its chunk of property. Great ghost stories in that one too.
Yeah, I got good photos.
Which you will, and
beautiful
again,
mature trees.
Great photos. Jay will be posting up on Patreon. So that'll be great. That was a fun one. We sat outside and we felt definitely weird because, of course, we were right beside the RCMP station. So I was wondering when someone's going to come over and be like, "What are you doing at 10:30 at night?"
Yeah, exactly. But it gave good vibes overall.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I didn't think it was too weird at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last place was really the place where you had your most, I guess, interesting growing up years. There was the whole reason CFB Esquimalt came to be, the original base, was because of World War II. Vancouver Island being right on the west coast of Canada, they thought, oh, maybe the Japanese will attack us.
Correct.
Because that's what they thought for everything. And then they decided they wanted to start having sort of a youth training facility. And that's when they put up the HMCS Quadra.
Well, I think Quadra was first.
So the HMCS Quadra, you went there for, like I said, many summers. Somewhere you loved. Mm-hmm. It's in a really interesting place. It's kind of in the middle, literally the middle of the bay, because you get there on a very little spit.
Yeah, it's called the Goose Spit.
Goose Spit.
So yes, HMCS Quadra was technically built after Comox, CFB Comox, but
only by a year.
Yeah, they were pretty close. I remember all the older photographs of the early base and the early cadets, the black and whites and sepia toned. Mm-hmm. But yes, I spent quite a few years there in the early 90s. My sister followed suit shortly thereafter and spent some time there. I don't remember, 3 or 4 years. But yeah, it's a good home. You build good rapport and lifelong relationships with these cadets.
And you talk about in story time how you don't even pay to go; they pay you.
Well, that's correct.
I said you had a wonderful summer of fun times and bad decisions.
Well, of course. Back in those days, we smoked. So that's not smoker's cough you're hearing.
No, that's COVID cough.
Yeah.
It's the new cool.
Not really. Yeah, so, yes, I had a lot of fun. Met some fantastically influential people.
Who you're still friends with. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is really neat.
And we recently had in August a reunion. Ian and I were of the younger of the reunions, and he was wondering why that is. And I said, well, probably because these guys are retired and we're lucky that we have
got
government
vacation
jobs
time. Yeah, exactly.
With paid vacation. So it was established in 43 as HMCS Quadra. Back then it was called Cadet Camp Comox, and then renamed HMCS Quadra in 56. Comes from the Spanish explorer Bodega Y Quadra. I'm not sure if that's Bodega E Quadra. In 52, the center hosted its first group of 700 boys from RCSC, or Royal Canadian Sea Cadets, and female cadets were entitled to be enrolled since 75.
Oh, how progressive.
Yes. yeah. It was probably an eye-opener.
And what kind of things did they do there?
Oh gosh.
You were there for the military band with trumpet.
Yes.
But they also did a lot of other...
Senior. Yeah. So we had basic training, seamanship, bosun, all the sailing programs, marine engineering. I remember med staff.
Shipwright.
Gunnery, shipwright.
So you get to build
absolutely.
ships, basic
shipwright.
sailing.
Yeah, 100%.
Everything. And then all the ceremonial stuff, drill and ceremonial instructor and all that as well.
Oh, the
You can learn.
gunners. They have gunners.
Yeah.
Gosh, they had practical leadership in their day and junior leadership. I remember JLPL. But those courses, I think, are gone now.
Or at least on hold.
Yeah, no, PL I definitely know is gone.
Yeah.
I remember the stories I was just told in August about what the PLs did, and they had to survive on nothing other than a small tin can of food.
Yeah, that
i.e.
sounds
like
awful.
an oyster can for
No.
like 3-4 days.
Yeah, no, not doing that.
I think they sailed 150 miles. That's what it was. And most importantly, the coolest thing was the exchange program. I remember exchange cadets from Germany and Japan, England. I remember US for sure. I made some friends from the US.
Australia, Bermuda.
I got a pair
Hong
of
Kong.
dungarees from our US friends. They were cool to wear. They
That's
were fun.
fine.
Thank you. Netherlands, Sweden,
That's awesome.
Bermuda. I never got to see some of them, but we also interestingly included air cadets on occasion.
Nice.
As a bi service or tri service. I don't recall seeing many Army cadets there, but certainly air, and that makes sense because you got CFB Comox just up the way.
So, and it basically, the place hosts over 900 cadets annually. Well, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people to be going through over the course of however many years, like since 1943. So when you told me, out of the blue, I might add, oh yeah, there's some weird stuff going on there.
Oh yes, yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me. That much youthful energy running through a place, that's going to attract some weird. And it sounds like it did. So we'll get into those stories when we get into our story time.
Absolutely.
So here we are. I am Jason
Deep dark Comox. It's
And-
Jason and Ian.
and Ian, yes. So yeah, we're in Comox Valley, which is the center of the island, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say that.
beautiful. It's beautiful. I was here in the 90s for Sea Cadets. A bit about myself in this Comox Valley. HMCS Quadra is the base that I was on for the early 90s for several years.
And that's really why you love it here, right?
Yeah, it's a cadet camp that hosts 1,200 to 1,800 cadets, as I recall, and officers. Good size, many H blocks, and it's evolved over the past several decades. But I remember my experiences there, but we're not there right now. That's across the spit. But we are here at what's called either the fort or the manor.
I think it's officially now called the Manor.
Yes.
But it was called the fort at one time. And you have already heard all the history in the history section.
Yes.
We're parked outside of it right now. It is very dark.
It is very dark.
The building looks very creepy.
Yeah.
We're at the back of it. The front of it faces towards the water.
Faces formerly the ocean, but I mean there's now houses built in its way, which is odd.
And so in its three lives, I guess you could call it, it was a private house, and then it was an administration building for North Island College.
No, it was a nursery home before that.
Okay, nursing home, then the
That's
admin
correct.
building.
Yeah.
And now it is various businesses.
Yeah, it's several
There's a
businesses.
physiotherapy clinic in here and stuff like
I
that.
think wealth management
Yeah.
as well.
So people have experienced a number of things in this building, which it's not that big. It's a large house, but it's not, monstrously huge.
No.
They talk about immediately when you go in there, you're not by yourself.
That's right.
They know that there's a presence, there's a feeling of something else in the house. They've talked about it feeling more mischievous
Yeah, like
and
a
friendly.
poltergeist.
Yeah. It's friendly, but
Playful.
it's not. Yeah, there's nothing evil about it. What are some of the things people have experienced?
Well, I think one of the experiences people have had are there's former residents from the nursing home that still wander the halls.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if they're unaware of their current situation, but that is what it is. I mean,
So there's been old ladies spotted. They've seen old gentlemen wandering around. The old gentleman has apparently startled someone having physiotherapy. He just sort of
Yes,
appeared in
that's
the
right.
doorway.
yeah, he appeared and was staring at the patient, apparently.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The bulbs in the chandelier in the main entrance drop by themselves,
That's right. They do drop by
which
themselves.
would be upsetting.
That's interesting, too.
Yeah. Which
But-
is funny because it kind of ties in with the other house.
If I remember right
We're
from
talking about
seeing those, the bulbs are on the top.
Right.
Which is interesting because it's, it's not like they just get unscrewed and fall to the ground. There has to be, if they're falling out, they have to be taken out of
Yeah,
their sockets
and then
physically
dropped.
and then dropped.
Yeah, that's true.
So, maybe this one has a bit more ability to manipulate things.
When this was part of the administration for North Island College, a group of the staff had a Halloween party here, and they
That's right.
cracked out a Ouija board, and what went down?
Oh, well, they pulled out a Ouija board, and they figured out that the individual's name is Ian, ironically enough.
Ironically enough, his name is Ian. He's a young boy.
Yes, he is young. Yeah.
And he is very playful, and in fact, they've given him a room.
Yes.
Room 202 is
Yeah.
his room. And we looked at the notice board because there's a board, like a building directory when you come up to the front door. And sure enough, it says 202,
Ian's room.
Ian's room.
It still
And
says that today.
No one likes to go up there. The other interesting side of the whole having a seance, using a Ouija board here, was the fact that several of the staff members wouldn't come back.
They would never come back.
They
Now, isn't
literally
that
refused to
interesting?
work in the building. So there must have been some other weird stuff going on with that Ouija board session. It can't just have been the one thing.
No, I mean it's weird that we're here tonight and it's so calm. It would have been a lot different if we were here last night. It was certainly a lot more stormy last night.
Gosh, it was crazy windy. Trees were coming down.
Yeah, trees in the North
branches
Island.
flying off. Yeah,
Actually, I think they closed the island north of Sayward.
yeah,
so
they shut down the highway.
to put it into context, the storm up here has been pretty wild. We checked into the resort. My family chalet was not available, so we got a good perk from my charge card for a nice resort here. And we kind of wandered the town last night, but it was windy.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, we went out today, and it was still quite stormy. And I seriously have never seen the tide this high.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nuts.
It's very high. It looks like almost Quadra is submersed in the ocean.
The other part about this building is that people do naturally feel there's something here.
Yes.
The weird part about the building, it's surrounded by homes now. It's in the middle of a
it's-
regular suburban neighborhood.
It is.
And people have noticed lights going on and off. But when there's no one else here, this is not a big bustling town at night. Everything just shuts down. So this building is emptied out and people see lights going on and off. They get alarm calls out here sometimes. There's no one here. So whatever is still moving around in the house is still pretty active.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sure it's tied also to what was here before it was built, with it being First Nations land
Yes, yeah.
and the potlatches.
Yes, that's right.
So what is a potlatch? Why don't you tell people what that is? Because not everyone's going to know what that is.
Well, a potlatch, I believe, is a gathering of several families, intern villages, and it's kind of a celebration. As my understanding is, because I am half native, but I'm a little bit less.
Well, you didn't grow up
Informed.
fully in the culture.
Yes, so
But you are
but it
status
can
First
take
Nations.
days, as I recall. Right? It's not just one evening and that's it. Off we go.
Yeah.
There are several activities that can be lined up. Now, to put that into context, the reason why this place was called the Fort is because when Ian was referencing the natives, this thing overlooks the Comox Nation, which is literally right down the hill.
Right.
Now, they used to be raided by other villages, so they come up to this hill where this manor now resides, and that was their fort to defend this valley.
Yeah.
So I don't know when the individuals had this built.
1938.
39, yes. Petter. Sir,
we will have already talked about all that,
Yeah, so Petter, basically, I was wondering, I was musing at dinner to myself tonight thinking, is, because they came from England and they really like the Comox Valley, is, did they enjoy watching, National Geographic with the natives down below?
Oh my gosh.
Because it's literally down below.
Only you can say that because you are,
of course, right.
Nations.
So I can only hypothesize and envision what this would have been like in the 30s.
Oh.
Because if you see the photos, none of these houses in the suburban were here. They were all, it was all
and it was
very natural.
Humongous salmon fishing.
Yes.
At the bottom of the hill. Like humongous. Like that was their main source of food.
Yeah, so you got the Comox Nation here. So I imagine that there are presences that are influenced from, I mean, and to put that into context, these potlatches were 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Right. Not insignificant.
And it was gift giving, it was celebrations. A lot of times that's when people would get sort of married in that sort of form they had.
Yes.
They would do all kinds of different social ceremonies. So potlatches were huge. And I mean, that was part of the reason why the Canadian government, because we're not at all repressive. They made them illegal for many, many years. Potlatches were actually illegal.
Yeah.
So,
and I think they had games as well, right? Because
it was just a good time.
Right?
Lots of dancing.
Yes.
It was just a good time. So, and it was a great way for the villages to build social connections. So I guess the government
you would have marriages that were arranged.
Yeah. So the government splitting them apart was good for the government.
And that's not out of the context of that old for the listeners.
Yeah, that's right.
My mom, she's
in her 60s
arranged.
now.
Yeah, she's in her 60s. She was an arranged marriage.
Yeah, with another village.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So high chief, right? So it's not that long ago.
No.
We're talking one generation removed.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of ridiculous to think that when I saw the original photographs, I mean, I gotten some nice photos today. That this setting is holistically different than it is now.
100%.
And when I was out there taking a picture of the sign with Ian's room just a few minutes ago, I certainly felt a chill, right?
There's some energy here. Definitely. Like, I will not be sorry to start the car up and drive away.
It's unsettled, right? The property, well, it was an estate, right? But you can see that it's now restricted in its size.
Yeah.
I don't know how big the original estate was, but you can get a sense that from the older photographs, it was quite large.
Yeah.
Certainly with regard to the houses that now surround it. And like I said, for those listening, the one house now blocks a significant vantage viewpoint of the ocean that it used to be. But this manor is on the hill, and then you have the Comox Nation quite literally below.
Yeah.
You do drive down.
Yeah.
So when you leave this, it's almost a right. You leave then they just basically go straight down the hill.
Yeah.
You do a left, and
that's
the nation.
Yeah.
And they spell Comox Comox, but the
First Nations
with a K, yes, as opposed to a C.
Yeah. And now, of course, there is a military base here and all those other things. So it's definitely changed. So this is one house we wanted to tell you about because it is a significant place that you could come and see, and it still has some pretty cool activity going on. So if you ever in the Comox area and you want to stop by and say hi to Ian, you at least know what room he's in.
Right, yeah, 202.
And
still his room.
Yeah, and so now we're going to head off.
There are pictures of him.
There are pictures. Yeah. So we're going to head off to another place now.
Yes.
Another home and talk about that some.
Sounds good.
All right, so now we are outside another house. Jason, what's this one called?
It's called Sandwick Manor.
Sandwick Manor. And what is notable about Sandwick? It is the oldest house?
Yeah, oldest house east of
the Kootenai River.
Comox River, isn't it?
Comox River. It's built on the Comox River. And it's very old, built in 1910, which for Western Canada is extremely old.
Yes.
And it's been here a very long time. It's the only one on the island built of faux stone,
Yes.
which is sort of a sandstone stressed thing to make it look like big granite blocks. And there is a resident spirit here. Like, tell us about her.
Yeah, so apparently her name is Aunt Anna.
And she's the wife of the first owner, correct?
I don't think so. I think she's
it was
the
Eric
aunt.
and Anna who lived
Oh,
here.
it might
with
be.
their
Yeah.
adopted son Charles. So I assumed that's why they called her Aunt Anna.
Maybe we should just start this whole episode over again.
No, it's okay. We can edit all this out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So, yes, her name was Aunt Anna, and I think she was the wife. Yes. So, most notably and interestingly enough, most people don't see her. It's
There's
really
only
bizarre.
very specific population who sees her.
Yeah.
12-year-old girls.
12-year-old girls in theory. Yeah, so apparently she looks after them in a sense. You know, there's a story where the parents went away and left the 12-year-old girls.
They went across the water.
Yeah, that's right. I think to Powell River.
Powell River in 1929.
And Aunt Anna came to visit the girls.
Because a big storm blew up.
Correct.
The girls
were
really
concerned.
upset.
So Aunt Anna saved the day by saying your parents are okay.
Yeah. And then recently the owner went away and had her family members come and stay in the house. And when they got back, they said, "You didn't tell us the place was haunted."
Yeah.
And it was their 12-year-old daughter who had seen Aunt Anna up in one of the upstairs bedrooms.
So apparently downstairs is called the dungeon.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because it's built on kind of the side of this hill and they didn't do proper basements back in those days. So kind of like my grandmother's house, it was just built on the rock.
Yeah.
So what we called the dungeon in her place was all this exposed rock in the one end of the house. So I can envision that here, lower ceilings. But the kids would never want to go down there. This is an interesting point. And it always felt warm.
Yeah, and they
Physically
actually
warm.
said the house had a warm spirit here. So I'm guessing it's probably one ghost. It's probably Anna.
Yeah.
It's built, as I said, very close to the river, which makes sense. Spirits seem to pull energy from that. And the other interesting fact was when they first moved in, the house on the inside had been modernized, kind of like 1970s, 1980s. And the light bulbs were always getting unscrewed to make the place dimmer.
Yeah. If
Which
that's
makes
correct,
sense
yeah.
because
Yeah.
if it was Aunt Anna, she would have known the place to have only lamps.
Handful of lamps.
Not electric light, but the owner said that since they have remodeled the place, returned it, looking more towards the period when it was built, there's been no more light bulbs being unscrewed, which
Isn't
I think
that
is
interesting?
amazing.
Well, it's so funny because there's a light that's out on the driveway.
Yeah. So maybe she doesn't like those ones.
Well, they're not, period. So,
The other thing she said, the owner had said, was she had never seen anything. But who had? Do you remember?
oh, yeah, the cats and dogs.
They had 2 dogs
They were
and a cat
following
and a
it.
bird, all in the same room where the TV was.
That's right.
And they'd be watching TV, and the animals would
Would just watch it go around the room.
going around the room all at the same time.
Yeah.
But they couldn't feel anything or sense anything or see anything.
No.
Pretty wild.
So Aunt Anna for the win.
And Anna for the win.
She looks after 12-year-old girls.
Yeah. And it's on a funny piece of property. So
It is bizarre.
where it is, it's off a pretty main road going between Courtney and Comox. It is behind the RCMP station, and across from it is the back of the Home Depot.
Yeah.
Like, it's a pretty awful location. It is zoned residential. There's no houses around it. There never will be.
It's unique that way because
it is.
Obviously Home Depot came after it was built.
I
complete juxtaposition of the house where you got the Home Depot selling all this new stuff and
there's this
period correct housing, which is interesting because I think it has a bit of a gingerbread-esque vibe to the house,
and it's got that scroll work and that kind of thing. I think it'd be really kind of cool. Actually, you could buy that house and turn it into a bed and breakfast very easily.
Yes,
because it's so centrally located. And hey, built-in ghost.
Built-in ghost, and if you need Home Depot supplies, it's literally across the street.
People coming up from Victoria, we're coming to Comox to go to Home Depot. I wish there was somewhere close by
or
we could stay.
Superstore right across the street. It's a little weird. This poor home,
and this poor house has been a bit marooned, and it's a bit like Ellis' house.
It is
in Victoria, right?
Yeah.
You know how beside it is the gravel mart, and across the street's the recycling plant?
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously these things. But the grounds of this house, to speak and put it back, the grounds are beautiful.
Oh, they're
and
huge.
The trees are
immense.
Well, you'll see that in the photographs
those
that I took.
willow trees, and
there's a big weeping willow, and there's an oak here that looks like it's centuries old.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a really neat property. I don't get anything creepy off of it.
No.
I mean, I got a little bit of a creep vibe from the other place.
Yes, 100%.
This one just seems like a really nice house. Like, I'd stay there.
Yeah, it is charming. It is a charming house, and it is a charming yard. And the owners obviously weren't fussy about the RCMP station on the other side because, let's be frank, RCMP stations are not ultra modern.
Attractive buildings.
They put this beautiful, looks like cedar hedge all the way up the driveway, so it's pretty blocked.
Oh, you can't see it. I mean, honestly, the only thing really interfering with this house are the super bright lights from
the Home
back
Depot
of the Home Depot. That's really all that's there.
But what's interesting is it gives the oak tree some very fancy lighting that looks somewhat spooky.
It does actually look pretty
cool.
It
is, I kid you not, there are several lights along the driveway, and to speak of this individual, Aunt Anna, who's not fussy about them, one is out.
Well,
so
and I think that's very fitting.
That fits.
So thank you, thank you, Aunt Anna, for letting us hang out and tell your story, and I hope you're here for many more years to come.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
So we're at kind of our final location for our Comox Valley episode here.
That's right.
And we're at a place that you referenced in the first story, HMCS Quadra. Now, people are not going to know what that is. So talk about that a little bit.
HMCS Quadra is a Sea Cadet training base that was established in the early 40s and has served Sea Cadets across Canada. It's for youth, typically age 12 to 19, maybe for their parents to get rid of them for 6 to 8 weeks in the summer.
Which is what your parents did.
Yeah. And on the government's dime, just as if you were in the Department of National Defense, you get posted at a summer camp. There's a few across Canada, and HMCS Quadra is unique. And its statement is, HMCS Quadra, where your very best is our absolute minimal acceptable standard, or what have you.
Yeah. And it basically
sets the bar very high.
Now, to put it in sort of where we are, we're sitting in a place, Goose Spit Park, which runs all the way up to the entrance of the base. And then the base is literally surrounded by water.
It is.
We're in a really weird place.
Yeah, it is. It's completely surrounded by water.
And the base is run as if it were a ship, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Now, you were here for many years, many summers, made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Made a lot of poor choices.
Probably.
Yeah.
I definitely smoked back then. So glad I quit years and years ago.
And you said, just sort of offhandedly, you're like, there's got to be some ghost stories about HMCS Quadra. And I was like, wait, what? So talk to me about
There's
that.
a
What did you
few
experience
places.
here? Yeah, so tell me about the most significant one that happened all the time kind of thing.
Okay, so the most significant one was, and this may sound tacky to our listeners, but there are H blocks. They set up the cadets into sleep. So they're basically these huge
dorms.
Yeah. So they're,
How many would be in each?
I honestly don't know. I don't know how many would fit in an H block. But they basically are ultra long trailers that are just sleeping quarters. And then the H that joins these big trailers, these big, huge trailers, is the washroom.
Okay, that's why
Right.
they're called H blocks.
Yeah. So, anyways, I would go to bed pretty late because I was a bit of a scrawny guy way back then, so I didn't have the ability to do my uniforms till very late.
Right. Well, probably all that smoking.
Maybe, I don't know, but anyways, I was not able to get my uniforms done usually till nearly midnight. So finally I was able to get into bed, and for those listeners, I didn't get much sleep, honestly. Right. Because our days typically start between 500 and 0600, which is 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So very little sleep. And I was part of a very busy, I was HMCS Quadra senior band, so we were kind of the face of Quadra.
Musically,
so we had parades all over the lower end of Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
And big productions, recording studio at Maiden.
Yeah.
So I had many uniforms that had to be done.
Right.
So sometimes, especially when I was in senior band, is when I was really young, I wasn't actually finally getting to bed till 2 or 3 a.m.
Oh no.
But anyways,
go to
needless to say, I finally would get some shut eye, and I'd be woken up by this thudding, this running across the H block.
Oh wow.
And I just would wake up in a fury, right? Because it's like I'm just getting to sleep.
Me up kind of thing.
Yeah, usually about 2:33 a.m. and it's just loud, and it's loud. I mean, these things are echoey.
So would it be like you could hear it coming and then receding?
Yeah. It was as if they ran from one end of the H block to the other.
Right, and they ran right past your bed.
Oh yeah, at full speed and full thud. Right. I mean, these things are kind of like trailers. They're built up.
So it's like you're wearing boots.
Yes, yeah. And these things, like I said, are like mobile trailers. So they're built almost as if they're on stilts.
Right.
So the echoing was, I don't know if any other Sea Cadets, some of my friends who might be listening to this, experience that too. You'd just wake up and you'd be so furious. But you'd look around immediately.
Like,
and everyone else is sleeping.
You should yell at.
Everyone is sleeping.
Weird.
Yeah, it just made you uncomfortable.
Yeah. Anywhere
made
else
it harder. Yeah. The parade square, I always found had some presence. I had to play last post a number of times. So
what time would that be at?
2300 hours, so 11 p.m.
Right.
That's when you on the hour start last post.
Yeah.
I loved it because it felt like I was in charge of the base. I would start that C, and everyone would immediately come to attention. Officers, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah.
The moment I started playing last post, everyone was at attention and saluting, or it was as if I was in charge of the base.
Right.
No one could do anything.
Yeah.
But
at 14, that's a
it's kind of a huge power trip.
Pretty big power trip.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I always felt uncomfortable pre and post.
Right.
Playing last post.
Like almost as if you'd called in something, or you'd.
Well, I would feel just an
gathered.
uneasy presence around the parade square by the ship's bell.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It just it would ring on occasion. It would
by
ring.
Itself.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't understand why it would, because if I remember right, they used to take the
clapper out.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Oh wow.
But
interesting.
I know the wind, like people would remember, the wind and the storms that happened, it was a little uneasy. The flagpoles made a lot of noise, but there were times when I would march on the parade square, it just felt like someone was following me.
Right, like you weren't by yourself.
Yeah, and the breezeway. The
Right.
breezeway is across from the parade square. It's adjacent to it.
Right.
And the parade square, and then you have the flagpole at the other end of the parade square. So basically, you got the flagpole, parade square, breezeway.
Yeah.
The breezeway, I felt so much as well. Like
Right.
a lot of this activity happened around there, and the H blocks are quite old. The more modern ones at the furthest end from, which is right near the entrance,
Right.
furthest end of the base, really nothing. But the older H blocks that kind
Like
of
from
are,
the 40s, from the 50s.
yes, yeah. There's a lot. It's a lot more uneasy, and
Interesting.
I would say also the confidence course, which is kind of the training facility to help build. Well, that's why it's called the confidence course.
It's a challenge. It's scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are on these tough challenges, and you're in these dark alley things that they make you crawl under. I don't know if they do it today anymore. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
allowed, which is sad
Yeah.
because it is scary.
Yeah.
You go into these corridors that you have to climb in, like on your hands and knees in the sand, with a billion June bugs that you just
Gross.
so noisy and
Not
loud
doing
they
it.
hiss.
Not doing it.
That part at night, I never went. I was not fussed about going to the confidence course area.
Yeah.
And at the other end of the breezeway, that's kind of the oldest part.
Right.
I'm comfortable saying is the
Okay.
it's kind of the original, and then they built all the rest. So some of the blocks are newer. When I was there, we had the old, the original galley. There used to be a lot of not nice presence around that part in the old original galley. That's all
Okay.
been torn down.
Right.
The new large galley that's there, that was during my period. They did a transition one year to the next.
Right.
It was kind of cool because the new galley is huge, but the old one was not
Creepy.
nice. Yeah, and
Felt
then
odd. Felt uncomfortable.
I agree, and yeah, the old gunnery shack. There were so many things that just hung around there.
Yeah, and you could feel them.
Yeah, and it makes sense because when on our drive here, I was talking about that, saying that the presence of Quadra is so strong.
Right.
You have cadets that come all across Canada, from the Maritime provinces all the way through to Victoria and Prince George, like myself, little PG, and we all are there 1,000 strong or so.
Yeah.
And we live and cohabitate together. It's like Survivor.
For like 6 weeks. Yeah.
It's like Survivor.
Yeah, you bond.
with rules.
You bond. Yeah. Well, and
it's-
anyone who's ever been to summer camp, you will never have friends like you made at camp.
Yeah, it's
And it's the same
interesting.
thing. And I think you're right. And I think if people are, wanting to go back to somewhere where they felt comfortable or loved or they belonged or whatever, or maybe unfinished business, like with the confidence course, they're going to come back here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
I'm sure they're annoyed that the PL block was torn apart.
they always find somewhere else to go.
Practical leadership is what I'm referring
Yeah.
to. There were a few programs that have changed over the past few decades since
Yeah.
I've been here.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe it's been 30 years.
You are so old.
Over 30 years now that I've been here.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so messed up. But I was here with Ian at this year's Alumni gathering.
In August, which alumni is like the what do you call it?
Well, it's
What's that word?
Alumni. Well, it's those past and present that have served. Or
Yeah,
are
but there's a
serving.
word for it.
What do you mean?
When you go to university.
Yes, alumnus.
Yeah, no, there's another word for it, but it's okay. I'll remember it later.
Perhaps. But anyways, we gathered, and Ian said we're one of the younger ones. So I apologize to all of our listeners, but I said, well, it's because we have government jobs, so we have paid vacation. So I said, there's some.
And we live in Victoria.
Yeah, and that
these
that
people are
happens too.
scattered across Canada now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if they're retired or semi-retired,
Yeah.
they have the ability to come here.
Yeah, for sure.
Just the activities were immense fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It kind of
I was
felt,
surprised.
in some ways, a couple of the activities felt like I was back here. So it was interesting, and but these lifetime friendships define you.
Yeah. And you fell back into some of them with people who you hadn't seen in 20, 30 years. And it was like, click, oh, we're back. And it was amazing.
It was
really neat to see. It was neat to be part of.
But I would love to hear of anyone else's hearings of these thudding, running noises through the H
or
box.
any
they were loud.
If you served in the military or you went to a military camp or anything like that, and you had some weird experiences, because this is not the first time I've heard stories about military bases. Like, there's a lot of weird ghostly activity in these kind of places. So we'd love to hear about it.
100%. I mean, when I was in Nellie's block down at CPS Esquimalt, there was a lot going on there.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah,
and that
Nellie's
base
block.
is even older.
Yes. So much older. Yeah.
Way older,
this is,
like
this
1800s older.
Yeah, this is what, 1943.
Yeah.
But, you know, what I'm saying is that the people who are Illuminists, maybe they just want to be Illuminati forever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
They just want to stay here forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if why someone would be wanting to thud and wake everyone up at 3 a.m. It certainly
Just get some
peeved
attention.
me. You know, I'm like, come on, seriously. But every time I woke up, everyone was dead sleepy.
Yeah.
That was unsettling. That's just unsettling.
Absolutely. All right. Well, speaking of unsettling, I'm freezing now, so we are going to end this back in the car and head on back. And thanks for being with us for this story time.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for powering through this episode with us. It was a long one.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. And we just want to take a minute to thank all our brand new shiny patrons. This is our very first Patreon shout out.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys. We're so grateful. We have a bunch of goals on there. And once we get a certain number of followers, we're going to do somewhat weird and humiliating things. No, I'm just kidding. They're cool things, and I think they'll be really fun. Mm-hmm. So if you want to just check it out, go to patreon.com/ghosts N, the letter N, ghosts and bears, and you will see all the different goals we have set up for what number of patrons we get. The cool thing is you also get some cool stuff. Yes. We've got mugs, T-shirts, stickers, all up for grabs depending on what level you're at. We're going to be doing an every other week bonus episode called Ghost Stories We've Heard.
Yeah,
and
we're looking forward to that.
We are looking forward to that, and we'd love to have your ghost stories included on that. So please, if you have a ghost story, send it on in. Absolutely. You can do that just with Ghosts and Bears. Again, just the letter N in there. ghostsandbears@gmail.com. And that will get to us. And of course, we're on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, under Ghosts and Bears.
We definitely would love to hear your stories. And we've received some good ones so far.
We have. So thank you for those. We're going to incorporate those. Yeah, for sure. So we just want to thank right now, a shout out for our wonderful patrons. Jason and I are going to do it back and forth. Yeah. And then next week we'll switch it up. So if you're dying to hear your name said in our voice. Yeah, just kidding. All right. So Jay, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Thank you to Cassie,
Gina and Victoria,
Sandy,
Christopher,
David,
Ashley,
Jeremiah,
Mamer,
Elizabeth,
Jules,
Sam,
BB Nix,
Melinda,
Jordan,
Tammy,
James,
Taya,
Evan,
Arwen,
Steve,
Kyle,
Catherine,
Myri,
and Christy. Thank you so much, you guys.
We're very grateful and we appreciate it.
And we're so thrilled to be with Patreon. I honestly, when I was setting all this up at the forever years ago.
I'm not trying to cough in your ear. I'm very sorry about
We're getting there. We tried to go different and do Buy Me a Coffee because it was kind of cool and independent and help them out. But once they had the inability to take PayPal, that's kind of the death knell. And also, we couldn't put out special episodes. We couldn't do merch. We couldn't do all these other things. And Patreon is just doing it and doing it well. So that's who we're with now. If you want to help us out, we have different levels, and we'll talk about those levels on another show. But this one's been long enough. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening. And we're excited for season 2. And we hope you are too. Of course, anytime you have feedback, we would love to hear it. If you want to let us know what you like, what you didn't like, whatever you want to do. Of course, we're always there by email, ghostsandbears@gmail.com. And your feedback's always welcome.
We're also looking forward to, well, once we can, traveling.
Yes.
We're definitely desperate to travel.
Yes.
And we'd love to interview you directly.
Yeah, if you've got a ghost story or you know of a place with ghost stories, we'd love to come and see it and hang out and do that. So we're really up for anything. And that's really what makes this podcast different is we need you to help us out and make it even better.
And yeah, we're looking forward to going to Oliver when the roads open up safely.
Yep.
And recording that one at the winery.
Yeah, hopefully. The road's washing out,
weird.
COVID, then a volcano blew up.
Yeah. What a way to start 2022.
What a way to start the year. Anyway.
How amazing.
Thank you so much, you guys. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming with us. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Until then, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just remember we're the only podcast with the actual ghost story.
With the actual history.
In the actual place. And hopefully one day soon.
That place will be with you.
Take care, guys.
Stay safe.
Bye.